is the Last Minute Blues podcast on an election Tuesday. We've got Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic. My name is Donny Fandango, and we always do this show with our homeboy Jeff Burton at the top of mind. Gentlemen, as today is an election day, I wanted to start with this. And it's not political.
I don't want to get political, but...
So everybody... Yeah, right. I'm going to not say something political that's going to be overtly political.
And we lost half of our listeners.
Right.
Crash.
But no, this is actually not that. So the last few times that I have, voted for anything, I have really thought, and this is not a joke, I'm 100% serious, I think that I am going to sign up, and I don't know if it'll be next year, but shortly, I think that I want to be an election official. Like one of those. Don't giggle,
I like
JR. I would be good at that, man. I can follow the rules. And I see those guys. So, like, I always, not always, but most of the time I vote at Kennedy Rec Center in South County. And, most of the time, respect intended, the folks that are working there are a little bit older. So if I started going in there, I would be the fountain of youth in that thing, man.
You'd be like the hip guy.
Dude, are you kidding? I would be the hip guy by like 25 years. But also, like, it just seems like a cool, like, little thing to do, to help out with.
You know the Halloween time where, like, those gifts come out where it's like, hey, you have to wear the apparel of a journalist, and it's just like a guy with a laptop bag. You got to wear the apparel of one of the elected voter people. You have to have the suspenders. You got to have the glasses, probably the Vietnam War vet hat, because everywhere I go, you see those guys.
Yep.
But I told the man today that was doing it had to be about 76, 77 years old. He was sitting there, suspenders, had his T-shirt on, his hat, plate full of donuts and a hot coffee, and I said, you, sir, have the life.
That's fantastic.
Donnie, it's funny that you say this because I was at Seckman Middle School today, and I voted, 6:30 in the morning, and I saw that guy that you're talking about at Seckman
guy.
Middle. I saw that guy, and he walked up to the people who were taking the IDs and handing the voting cards, and he walked up to him and he goes, 171 voters in 45 minutes. You guys are kicking butt. Good job. Keep it up all day. Good job. That was you.
How much energy does that man have?
At 6:30.
That's amazing.
I could do that.
All right, let's practice.
Like, I could do that right. Hey, everybody, let's go. 171 voters in the first 45 minutes. That's great. Let's keep it going. Only 12 more hours of me doing this. Somebody's going to punch me.
Here's my question, though. What's going to be your job the other 364 days?
Yeah, that's a real
every 4 years.
Listen, don't think that I don't think about what I'm going to do when this radio career takes a massive tumble. Because I do, and I still have no idea.
I could see Donnie standing outside one of those voter places with those big arrows and just flipping it around and just pointing it at the building, be like, come on in, vote.
I would learn the skills in order to flip the signs as best as I could. I'd hurt myself with that.
Oh, yeah. I hit myself.
Donnie, why are you down on the radio? It's like you're getting some emails behind the scenes that we haven't heard about or something.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know the best way to
tweets, texts.
I don't know the best way to answer that question. There are just... honestly, to not take it to a serious tone, but you see lots of really freaking goddamn talented people that are in the radio that get let go every day.
Yeah.
And so it's always sort of this thing, which when I was in college at Florissant Valley Community College, all right?
Shout out.
I had this particular advisor named Mr. Ballas, and he appreciated that I had talent, but he also was trying to really imprint on me how important that it was that I get my education while I was in school. And I did not listen. And I just hear Mr. Ballas a lot in my head these days going, backup plan. Backup plan. But, it's just a weird business to be in right now. Man. I mean, any of us that are in a media-driven industry, you're puckered a lot more than you're not. Right?
Yeah, you're wrong there.
I mean, and I'm not even trying to be a downer, but like just the way in which that it is.
Yeah.
So I figure.
Your teacher was a lot nicer than mine in college. He walked in and he was like, hey, get into radio. This is great. You're not going to get paid, and life's going to suck for the first 5 years. And then, like, the next class that met, there was, like, at least 10 students out of it.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, that's probably what I was planning for.
Yeah, Donnie, I would get some calls from Alex, and he would say, things got to get moving. I've got to get that next position. I got to get to that next level. And I go, no, yeah, I hear you. How old are you? And he goes, 24. Like, this has got to happen soon. And I'm like, holy smokes.
JR still to this day reminds me when I first met him, for the people that don't know, like, JR is about as influential as anybody on me, like, being in this business.
Don't get people mad at me.
I know, that's sorry. Sorry, everybody. I didn't say BK.
Oh.
My pastor, he married you and your wife,
Yeah.
correct? So
Yeah.
my pastor had married JR and his wife, and this was when I was like 16 years old, and I had made it known that I was wanting to get into sports broadcasting, sports talk, and he's like, I got somebody for you to meet. So we met at Bandanas in Arnold, and JR was there, my pastor was there. I rolled in with a suit and a briefcase.
Yeah, but
You know that scene in
He
Step
was ready.
Brothers when they roll into a job interview in tuxedos?
Yes.
JR was there after like being at the gym. My pastor was there in like jeans and a t-shirt, and then I rolled in with a suit and tie and a briefcase.
I feel like that fits exactly how I thought that it would. That sounds exactly spot
I
on.
had my like padded binder, and I laid it on the table, and it just had one piece of paper in it, and it was a resume that said like, "Oh, I'm a cook at Ponderosa in Arnold." Like, this is a weird.
The only
meeting.
part he made up was me coming from the gym. That's the only thing.
No, what are you talking
15
about?
minutes later, I had barbecue sauce.
He looked
on
like
my
Dwayne
shirt.
the Rock.
Dude, I'm going to
Just-
tell you
just
something
that.
right now. I would love bandanas at this exact right second. I would love
We need
that.
to do a live Last Minute Blues podcast from Bandanas.
I honestly wish you wouldn't have said that. I'm going to be freaking starving the entire rest of the thing. And you know what's real? I love the little garlic bread that they bring at the table too. I get freaking full on that before my ribs even come. So, all right. So,
Well, if you leave
now
right
Jared's
now
hungry.
with this traffic out there today, you can be there by dinner.
That's true.
If you
That's
left
very
right now.
true.
I just want to say this really quick, and I'm not even going to say this like mad or anything because I'm not mad. If your name is Steve and you have created at least 3 Twitter accounts to tell me how much I suck for saying that the Blues shouldn't trade Jordan Kyrou, I think that it's time to maybe reevaluate some things that you got going on in
Are
your
you
life.
kidding me? That you just need to put that dedication and passion towards something else, because 3 accounts just to tell one guy he sucks?
Can you imagine? I could
Impressive.
not imagine coming up with a second one to have a burner account for any particular reason.
That's what it was. See, when I said he was down on radio, I thought he was getting emails. He's got a guy.
Well, yes,
Twitter
both.
accounts.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I at least get one a week of somebody telling me that I should do
Gosh,
something
I would
else.
pray to get just one. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, well, you know, like every once in a while it's funny, and then every once in a while you're like, maybe that's
Yeah.
not such a terrible idea.
What I
don't know.
find what I find great is sitting next to JR during a hockey game and getting people just continuously texting and tweeting and being like, hey, what's going on with this? What's going on this? Meanwhile, JR's like this with his laptop. I don't know. I'm trying to get this article done.
Well, it's stuff like, seriously, on the Twitter, you get the, hey, is the elevator in section 302? I no idea the last time I was on the 3rd level of this building. I go straight from 0 to 4. Like, I don't go to 3. I don't know if the elevator's working. I'm sorry. I want to cover the Blues. I don't know if they fixed the...
I don't understand why that's your deal to find out. Like, it's also, is somebody asking you if, like, the Steve's hot dog stand is open downstairs? Because to me, that's sort of one and the same thing.
I got a
Shake
good idea. How
Shack.
about this? I'm going to keep a list. I'll keep a list.
All
For, like,
right.
the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. Let's forget about it for a couple weeks, and then I'll bring that list in about 3 weeks.
Oh, dude, that sounds
and we'll
great.
read it, yeah.
That sounds great. All right, so when it comes to the Blues, just so you guys know, I have completely gone off kilter here, and I'm completely concerned, and I'm worried, and I'm panicked, and I'm freaked out. So I'm hoping that you guys are going to, one, settle me down and bring me back to earth. But in all seriousness, not only for the Blues was it a bummer to see Philip Broberg go out, but also for this young man that was really getting an opportunity to really make a name for himself as a prominent young defenseman in the NHL. What a bummer for this kid, man.
Oh, yeah. Well, you want positive, start with JR. Don't come to me, because I'm still in the, no, I'm not even in the acceptance stage yet.
Dude, the look on your face with that was like, I don't even want to try
dude,
that right now.
I was
So I'm
broken.
Mr. Positive in this?
Yeah, you're Mr. Positive.
Okay, the Blues will go 19-0. Well,
Oh,
Broberg
jeez.
is on the shelf.
I said
When he
Mr.
comes-
Positive, not Mr. Unrealistic.
Yeah, it's a tough blow. It really is, Donnie. This guy was the best player on the team to date, right?
Yeah.
Through 12 games. And he is a star in the making, according to some. I think Ken Hitchcock said as much. Was he on your show?
Yeah,
right?
he called him Jay Bomeister.
Yeah.
They asked him, they said, like, hey, who does he remind you of? Without even blinking, Hitch goes, Jay Bomeister. Didn't explain, just said Jay Bomeister.
Yeah, and we had Justin Falk yesterday come out to do media after the Blues practice, and I said, hey, Ken Hitchcock said this guy's a star in the making. What do you think? He didn't hesitate. He right away said, oh, yeah, like he's going to get there. So, you know, in keeping it in perspective, it's 4 to 6 weeks, even if it's longer. The fact that it's not an ACL, the fact that it's not a 6-month rehab, and then you've got an ACL on your history, you know, I think is amazing. Like, this is incredible. So he does have a significant injury, obviously, because it's going to keep him out a month or more. but you'll get him back, and he's a young guy, so he should recover
that's the big
pretty
part.
well. That's a huge part, and you get going again. So I think this is massive news for the Blues that this is what the diagnosis is.
Guys, real quick, I know it's early in the season, but with us being a very, fringe playoff team, I think that's, I don't know, I think it's generous to say at this point, but with where the Blues are in the standings, with how they have played so far this year, does it change kind of how you let Robert Thomas and Philip Broberg come back? Like, obviously, I think if you are pushing for points, then maybe you're trying to get them back as soon as you can. But now at this point, guys, are we at a stage where we're like, more than anything else, wins aside, we got to make sure that these two guys that are going to be our horses in the coming years are coming back 100%.
Totally. That is priority number one. And Robert Thomas, you got the fractured ankle, so like that's itself. You let that heal, and he's not coming back. Broberg's the one that it concerned me a little bit yesterday, just because, and I know hockey is like there's no specifics. It's not like, hey, so and so he pulled this, and this is why he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. It's lower body, better than what we originally thought. He'll be back at some point. It still worries me when it's the knee, because like that is everything. And for 23-year-old defensemen who hadn't even played 100 games yet in the NHL, you want to make sure that like not only does he come back his old self, but he comes back not being worried about the injury that just took place. So 4 to 6 weeks is great, but you're right. Like the moment he went down, one, it was, man, how do you evaluate this season? Because you don't have Thomas, you don't have Broberg. This was supposed to be that leap year from being bad in a retool to potentially getting into a contending window. And this was that main middle year. And now it's like, how do you even evaluate? You don't have Broberg, you don't have Thomas. So both elements in terms of 5-on-5 penalty kill and power play are all kind of up in the air. And you've got a lot of other guys that are playing out of position that they probably shouldn't be. So that was the first thought. It's like, man, this might be just a lost year in terms of figuring out who you are because of their development. But then, too, you're right, Donny. It was, man, Broberg comes back. He needs to come back 100%. I don't care where your team is at and how much you want him back. He needs to be 100%, because that dude, in 12 games we've seen him play, that guy already looks like a cornerstone piece of your future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's absolutely a phenomenal question. I'll break it into two parts, and I think what Alex said here is dead on. You don't rush those guys back for 1 second. Like, even if you go, let's say that these two guys miss the next 20 games. Even if you go 15-5 and you're right there at the wild card spot and they are 99%, I don't play them a game earlier.
Nope.
Like, you're waiting a couple games, even if you're in contention. This year obviously is important for the development, getting the team back, going in the right direction. But in 2 or 3 years, you're going to look back. I'm just glad these two are healthy and,
Right.
and we didn't rush it. But I will say this too. Part two of the answer is that, I don't think in November, especially early November, you look at this as a lost season yet, just because you're without these two guys. I think that, let's see how they play without them, which may not be great. And, they're 500 right now with Broberg the entire season. So, let's see what happens. Now, if you get into December and you're 15 games below 500 and just things aren't clicking, then I think you probably reevaluate things and make some moves based on, how things look. But I think as we sit here today, November 5th, even without your two big horses, you just keep playing, keep thinking that you can be a playoff team, see where you're at when they get back and make your moves based on that. But right now I think it's way too early to say, okay, this is a lost season. Let's start making decisions like that.
I did feel like I just switched bodies with Donnie there for a minute, because I was the one that's like, oh my God, it's a lost season. And JR is right. Like, you still have the development of Neighbors. You still have the development of Holloway. You still have the growth of Kyrou. The part for me is playing Pavel Buchnevich at the center position. We've talked enough about it. Like, it's hard to evaluate that. And, if you had Thomas right now, and for how Faksa and Sundqvist look at the center spot, maybe you could have gotten to the point where you say, let's move Buch back to the wing to see if you can generate more offense. Now you don't have the luxury of doing that. But there are still a lot of key pieces that you can look at, and you'd be like, hey, how does this guy look for the future? Holloway, Neighbors, even a Matt Kessel getting more significant ice time. Bolduc as well. Bolduc playing in a top 6, top 9 role. Like, those are the elements that you can look at and you say, like, hey, this is what we're at least getting answers here, and you're not rushing the other guys like the Dvorskys and those players because you feel like you're in a win now mode.
All right, so I'm not sure the exact best way to ask this question, but towards the end of last season, JR, and I don't know if you guys will remember, but JR had kind of sort of brought up the topic to us about the Blues not having like a bona fide friggin' superstar, bona fide, horse.
Real Kaprizov going out there and
kind of guy,
putting up
all right?
3 points a game.
And please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. But with Thomas going down, with Broberg going down, I kind of have started to think about that particular aspect of things more. And then also wondering if the Blues' best players are being the Blues' best players right now as these injuries are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all kind of sort of coming together to me in this sort of weird mix of, well, do we actually really have enough? Are we really putting a lot on Dvorsky and Snuggerud and these guys to be something that maybe they're not capable of? Not to say that teams can't win without a bona fide superstar. The Blues did that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could say that about O'Reilly or Tarasenko, whatever, but I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You're Jack Eichels. You're, those friggin' guys. One, are the Blues' best players playing enough right now playing well enough right now in the absence of good players? Two, does this sort of speak to us not having that sort of horse that can really sort of put a game or two on his back and get you a win, get you 2 points in a game you really probably shouldn't have won?
Yeah. I mean,
is there a lot there, and is
no,
that stupid questions to ask?
No, let me start with that second one first, because I don't know if they're building to have a bona fide horse. Like, I think they're building the same way that they built that Stanley Cup team, where it's a pack mentality.
And I'm not saying that's bad.
No, I mean, they were successful with it, but I mean, remember how they did that. You had 3 solid lines that could score. You had a 4th line that you trusted in any scenario, and you had 6 big defensemen that could shut things down, and then a goaltender who made the saves. Like, you had to be almost perfect in every area. Where you don't have to be perfect in every area if you're a hockey team is if you have a superstar that when you're down by a goal and you need it, you put him out on the ice and he can create it. So it's hard too, because like they didn't have a bona fide superstar, but man, watching O'Reilly that 2019 season, every single time that the Blues needed some type of comeback moment, he was the guy out there that was generating the offense. So he may not have been a Draisaitl or a McDavid, but he still was playing to the level where he was making things happen. That's the frustrating part this season with the injury to Thomas, because Thomas was the one that last year you put up a star caliber season. You were a point per game player, nearly 100 points. Now you were wondering, okay, can you take that to the next level? Can you be a 100-point player? Can you generate more offense? And can you carry your team to a playoff? That's where it sucks with Robert Thomas going down, because that was the one, at least it felt like you could start to see it. I don't want to be negative with it. I don't know if you have not stars. I don't know if you have that star caliber horse that you're talking about in either Dvorsky or Snuggerud. I think that's putting too much pressure on them already.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I agree with Alex. The only thing is, they haven't been in a position to draft a star. So, if it's a couple years ago and the Blues season fell apart and they got the number 1 pick, they're taking Connor Bedard and there's your star, and we're having a different conversation. If it happened last year, they got Macklin Celebrini, they've got the star in the making, and we're having a different conversation. But because they've decided to, stay competitive, try to be competitive, keep the butts in the seats. Look, I go back to the interview I had last summer with Tom Stillman, and I said, hey, I did this poll, and I realized it's only 2,000 people, and you can't base decisions on 2,000 people. But, only a small percentage said they'd cancel their tickets and not come if you guys went through the rebuild. And he said, yeah, we can't do that. We can't afford to lose, 30% of the fan base, because we decided to go into a rebuild. So that's why they want to be competitive. And, I think the NHL, you guys agree, disagree here, is, it's so top heavy with the draft picks. Like, it's top 5.
Yeah.
It's top 5. You're a star. If you get a superstar at 10, 15, 20,
you did a great job of drafting.
You lucked out. And so if you look at these Blues players, like a Robert Thomas is 21st pick, I think.
So.
Jordan Kyrou was 32nd, somewhere second round pick. So these guys aren't in that top 5 to 10. Now, that doesn't mean they can't be stars. I think Robert Thomas, to Alex's point, if he stayed healthy and put up a 100-point season, he could be start to put himself into that category, but they just haven't been in that position to build around a star.
And that's one thing that we talked about yesterday on BK and Ferrario. You look at the retool because BK had asked me, is there a silver lining if you do lose a Philip Broberg? And again, not to get negative with it, but the silver lining is, look, you might be bad to where you get a really good draft pick in the middle of a retool. And I referenced the LA Kings because that's the team that Doug Armstrong always references when he talked about the retool 5-year window. Well, the Kings were playoff team. They missed it for 3 straight years. That third year that they missed it was the year that they drafted Quentin Byfield 2nd overall, and then it was playoffs every single season. So again, who knows if that happens? You really hope it doesn't. You hope this team keeps their head above water, everybody comes back healthy. But I mean, the LA Kings did that to where it's like, look, they were, I think that first year that they missed, they were like drafting 16th, 17th, 18th. Then the next year they drafted 5th overall. You could kind of reference that to the 10th overall that the Blues got Dalibor Dvorsky. But the LA Kings got a 2nd overall pick. You go to the New York Rangers, who are competitive right now. They got a 1st overall pick in Lafreniere. I mean, all of these teams that turned it around fast either spent a ton of money in free agency and got a really good draft pick, or they had multiple really good draft picks.
A bunch of years ago, we were very much lucky enough to do a live episode of the podcast out at Brett Hull's restaurant. And it was Jeff, Jamie, myself, and Brett Hull. And first of all, it was very eye-opening. Brett Hull is, wow, that is a unique individual right there.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the things during the course of the interview, and there were a few different topics that seemed to sort of perk him up and make him a little mad. But one of the things that he got really hot about was when talking about how many shots that Blues players were missing at that particular time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he was beside himself with that. Do the Blues still lead the league in that? Because I feel like,
shots?
and not only missed shots, but also how many goddamn times is Jordan Kyrou going to hit the post and not put the friggin' puck in the net? I feel bad criticizing the guy for hitting the post so much, but man, like, at what point we need homeboy to be a finisher?
Yeah. So I actually looked at this stat prior to the Maple Leafs game because I was curious.
How about that?
Donny
It's
and I
almost like we talked about this beforehand.
We didn't, too, which is wild. Because Bannister had said it multiple times. We were asking about the blocked shots being a problem because there's been a lot of them. And Bannister was like, no, the missed shots are more of an issue. So I'm like, okay, where are they at in the NHL? They had the 10th fewest missed shots in the National Hockey League this season. It was only 135. Now, the tough part is, like, you're going off of a judgment from off-ice officials in different arenas. So there could be 50 more that they just didn't write down. They labeled it a blocked shot. They said maybe that hit somebody. So it's hard to go off of just NHL.com stats and say, like, oh, they only say they're the 10th fewest in the NHL. But it does feel like every single game you're talking 13 to 15 missed shots on net.
100%.
On top of 17 to 20 blocked shots. Like, you're talking about almost half of the shots on goal are being attempted and missing.
Yeah, and it's no disrespect to the off-ice officials across the league.
No, they got a tough job.
But there are times when, the missed shots is the story tonight. Even Bannister is bringing it up, and then you look, and they had 6 in the game. It's like, I know they had more than 6.
Totally.
Count 6. So I think that's sometimes a misleading stat. But, yeah, and it is a big deal. And, Donnie, I've gotten to the point now where, I always bring, my son's hockey team into the story. But, like, my son Eli, he'll be 20 feet out, 15 feet out, take a shot, and it'll hit, like Farmington. Like, he'll hit Farmington.
I got stuck in the water.
And I'm sitting there going, buddy, like on the drive home, hey, you had that shot opportunity. And then I'll go to a Blues game and I go, oh, okay, never mind. It's not so bad. Like,
right there, these guys are doing it too.
Seeing it there, so.
Yeah, but it is an issue. And I think Bannister's right. Yeah, the block shots or something, but that's part of today's NHL. Like, they clog the lanes. They're going to get in the lanes. But when you've got an opportunity and you put it off that piece of the glass, the guy who cleaned it earlier the day had no idea that a puck would actually hit it later that night. That's
it's like, I just cleaned that scuff mark. Well, Joey, sorry, Donnie. Joey was talking about this on postgame too, because I brought up the missed shots versus blocked shots, and he said that one of his coaches when he was in college or it was minor leagues, he had said reference to him like you aim small, you miss small, and meaning like you're aiming for that little tiny spot in the net. Sure, but look how tiny that is going to be, and you're probably going to miss that one, and the next thing you know, the puck's out of the zone. He said more times than not, and a perfect example was Kyrou's goal the other night against Toronto. You just aim for the net and then just hope something happens. Colton Parayko, 2 slap shots from the blue line. when you're trying to be pinpoint accurate, and I feel like they happen more on odd man rushes when you're trying to make that play and you're trying to pick the right spot, rather than just putting it on net and hoping a puck bounces off of somebody and just goes in. That's the difference right now. And it just feels like, and I would imagine some of this is because you're clinching the stick a little too tight because you haven't been scoring a whole lot of goals.
Yeah.
You're probably trying to be perfect when you take that shot, and next thing you know, you're missing it and it's coming out of the zone.
All right, guys. So as I am a passionate Blues fan that, goes through some ebb and flows of emotions as games
Mostly
go
ebbs.
on. As
I can't say anything. I've been the Debbie Downer today.
mostly ebbs. That's totally accurate. but so like, guys, how do we realistically look at the next 6-8 weeks of Blues hockey? Like tonight against freaking Tampa. And I love that this is Tampa, like, sort of essentially on the downswing as opposed to where they were, and they're still freaking loaded. I mean, like, how do the Blue? What are we looking for here? What are some positives that we're looking for here?
Wouldn't it be great to be considered on the downturn and still have Kucherov, Braden Point, Victor Hedman, and Vasilevsky? Yeah. That's the downturn of our organization.
I would love that to be our downturn right now.
I mean, I know I said that it did feel like, and at the moment, you got to understand so many emotions when you see Philip Broberg go down that it felt like you're losing out on a season. But, I mean, if anything, this stretch is going to give you a really good idea of the complementary pieces that you believe are a part of this next core. Like, we talk so much about the bads with Jordan Kyrou that you need to give him credit for the goods, and that Toronto Maple Leafs game was once again an awesome game by Jordan Kyrou. Can you do that for 15 of the next 20 games?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do that, not only have you kept your team's head above water, hopefully, but you've also shown to a lot of people that are skeptical of your play, that guy is going to be a part of your solution when you're ready to contend. Maybe he's a second-line winger, but he is going to be a solution. Do you see more from Dylan Holloway and Jake Neighbors? Because those two guys have shown you plenty of offense right now, but then you're looking at growth of Zach Bolduc, like you mentioned. You're looking at growth of Matt Kessel, of potentially P.O. Joseph if he takes the spot. And then I just think you get more clarity on guys that you were uncertain if they were a part of this team moving forward, like a Falk, like a Colton Parayko, Nick Leddy when he comes back. Like, how do they fit into the timeline once you see this team play for 20-plus games?
Yeah, Donnie, I'm the absolute wrong person to ask. You're on one end of the spectrum. I'm on the other end, in that I grew up a Blues fan. Like, I had the Blues posters in my room, lifelong St. Louis and so on and so
Who are you
forth.
talking to, JR?
But listen, I never...
Donnie had a lot of Red Wings posters on his bedroom.
Oh, no. I'm going to get to that point.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Fat-headed
This is
Nick Litch
the
from above
setup.
his
So
Maybe I should just listen.
I'm sorry. I'll have a rule where you got to listen to the first 15 seconds of the point before you... No, I'm joking. But no, I was there, and when you become the beat writer team, which I never had guessed in a million years, like when they said, "Do you want to cover the Blues?" I'm like, "What?" But you cover the Blues, starting 20 years ago, and you kind of cut the cord on terms of the emotion. So when I go to a game, hopefully Alex can attest. He sits next to me there. Is like, whether they win or lose, it doesn't sway me one way or another. Like, I don't even think about it. What I see is what Alex just talked about is Bolduc. How good's he looking? And this is whether they're going to have a playoff season or not.
Right.
Like, even if they're a good team and a playoff team, like, there's still zero emotion. And so, that's the one way that you can try to be an objective writer and cover the team, is not go along on the roller coaster ride.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking, like Alex is, Bolduc, what's Broberg looked like? And that was phenomenal. Like, this move looks like pure gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Holloway, same thing. Holy smokes, here's two parts that I didn't see in 2 years that are going to be here with Snuggerud and Dvorsky. And instead of getting all upset about the Blues lost to Tampa on a Tuesday night in November in a season where they're probably not going to be a playoff team, I'm looking at the Springfield website. What did Dvorsky do?
Yeah.
And so that's, if I'm a Blues fan, whether they go 15-5 or 5-15 without these two guys, Broberg and Thomas, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, well, and it's odd too, because I'm the same way, to where you look at it in terms of, like, how does 3-4 years from now look? Like, you see some of the placeholders. Like, now you've got a Broberg. The biggest thing that I think we've been talking about since we've done this podcast together is who's you're going to be top left-handed defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, okay, well, you got the guy, You've got a Robert Thomas as a centerman. You know that there's wingers. How does Kyrou look over these next? And then, like JR mentioned, I think right now, more so watching this team win or lose against Tampa or go 2-3 on a homestand, you kind of see, like, what did Stuggerud do in Minnesota, or what did some of these guys
He hit
do
somebody in the head.
Yeah, it goes
Knocked
headhunting
the
out
game.
there after
Holy smokes.
nearly getting a hat trick. So
I did not see
a
that.
couple nights
Yeah.
ago, yeah.
Jimmy Snuggerud, ladies and gentlemen, he's got a little nastiness to his game, which is not a
He
bad
just,
thing.
he
Have
just
to tell
didn't
you, I
want
like
to play
that.
the rest of the game.
Yeah.
That's
Like, look, I scored 2 goals last night. I got a point already. We're done with this one.
But the idea, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the idea of him and Jake Neighbors being on the same team. Yes,
Fun,
please.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, you're just, for me, it's like, yes, you want to see this team win. Yes, you want to see them make strides, but it's a lot about the development. I personally feel like the playoffs are important because to develop into a cup contender, you got to get some playoff reps under your belt. Now, I know Thomas has them and Parayko has them and Pennington, but you've seen, 1-2 playoff series for Jordan Kyrou. I think you've only got like 2 or 3 with Pavel Buchnevich. You really have none of them with Jake Neighbors. Like, those are guys that you want to experience playoff hockey. But until then, you got to start seeing individual growth.
Yeah, and that's why I did a story, I think it was last year, year before, I talked to Backus and Jackman and a couple other guys about what's it mean for the young guys to make the playoffs, and they said, oh, it's everything. Like, if you can make – so that's why I say don't concede the season yet, because you don't know what can happen. Maybe you can sneak in there, play around, you get guys 4, 5, 6 games. But it is all about the development. So the way I look at whatever, the next month, 6 weeks, 2 months, is you're kind of playing with house money. Turn on the TV, watch the game. Look for the things that we were just talking
Listen
about.
to Alex on the pre-
Listen
and
to
post game.
Alex talk about the
JR,
games
which
coming
I
up
do a
in
lot.
6 minutes, and we're going to send it to Chris Kerber coming up and do those things. And then if they lose 3-2, but the guys that we talked about who are going to be part of the future played well, then that's a big deal. But here's the one thing I do want to make a point of is I don't want to take away any of that fandom from people. For sure, you should get caught up in the wins and losses if that's your thing. I would just say maybe a little less emphasis.
You got to temper it a bit.
Yeah.
You do for your own
Sanity?
sanity.
Right.
Man.
Yeah.
What's so crazy to me though is that you're talking. It's not the same thing. But when you're talking about taking the emotion out of it and just following it, honest to God, reminds me so much of bands and shows and albums and how I go, well, yeah, you don't understand why they played this venue. It's because it's
Right.
just amazing how in the particular field that you're in that you do have to take that sort of emotion part out of it to do your job better. You know what I'm saying? So
funny.
I feel better.
It's funny that JR said that, though, because if you would have heard my post-game verse of the Maple Leafs, you would have never thought that the Blues won 4-2. Because I was like, Philip Broberg got injured tonight, and the Blues won.
Well,
It was a very downer type
But
of post-game.
that's a heavy thing to have happen and hang in
Well,
there, man.
a quick follow-up on that is, so I go to the game. I have no idea what I'm going to write about each night, right? Sometimes I don't even write. But that night, okay, Craig Berube's coming back. Wow, it's a 4-2 win. This is a big deal. But when you put your head on, you think, what matters? Broberg's hurt. So it's 900 words on Broberg's hurt. So we go in the interview yesterday with Drew Bannister, and we're talking to him about the good news that he's only going to be 4 to 6 weeks and this and that. And he goes, yeah, guys, is Drew talking, the speculation is the worst part. Like, we should just sit here and wait to find out what the truth is going to be and then move on from there.
Did he make eye contact with you when you said that?
And I'm not the only, obviously everybody talked about it and wrote about it type thing, but all I'm saying is that's the world that we live in, is that speculation. Oh shoot, this guy could be out for the year. But my bigger picture point is that because of that injury, we overlooked that for the second time in 10 days, Drew Bannister and his team beat Craig Berube's Toronto Maple Leafs and looked pretty good doing it. And so we kind of take away some of the storyline by focusing on the injury.
We also, us personally, at that game, we're talking about Broberg. All the while, Colton Parayko is taking 2 slap shots and nearly scoring a hat trick, which would have been the first time a defenseman had a hat trick since Al McInnes. But none of that felt like it mattered because all you were focusing on was Philip Broberg. So it was just, I think that actually tells you more about Philip Broberg and his development in 11 games than anything else, because that's how high people have gotten on this kid who's 23 years old, that 11 games into the season, he impressed so much that there were people that were like, oh my God, if he's done for the season, this season's over.
Right.
Yeah.
I think too, I just get we're 15 games into the season or whatever. What am I yelling about? You know what I'm saying? There gets to be a point too, as a fan, where you just got to enjoy the damn game.
He says 15 games in the season he was yelling. Wasn't he yelling in July?
Oh, yeah.
Listen, man, I mean,
when he said ebbs and flows, he means ebbs and flows. It is all over the place.
Listen, boys, I'm an emotional fella.
Yeah.
I don't, you know what I mean?
That's why we love you.
I'm passionate. But see, the thing is that I could be this passionate about hockey. I could be this passionate about a band. That's just kind of how I go. For better or for worse. All right, guys.
Future election worker.
Yes, future election
Come
poll
see
worker.
Donny Fandango,
So
ladies
you're
and
going to be
gentlemen.
level-headed there.
I'm going to be the youngest guy in that room by 30 years.
Donnie's
It's going to be
You
fantastic.
can't walk through and say, my guy won.
Did you guys see the crap that happened in the Blues
Yeah.
game last night?
Yeah, like, can I even, like, if I see a guy in a Blues hat as an election official,
No.
it would be unprofessional for me
Keep
to
it to yourself.
spark up a conversation.
Keep it to yourself. That's what they'll tell you.
I guess so.
Donnie's out. Now he's just going to be a door greeter at the election polls.
Just opening the door.
Yeah.
I can do that too.
Come on in,
Then
sir.
I can compliment your Blues hat.
This guy doesn't work for us.
It is the Last Minute Blues podcast for our dude Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, Jeremy Rutherford from
Who
The
has to
Athletic.
go create another Twitter account today to send to Donnie
I know,
a
man.
message.
Jerry, sooner or later he's going to figure out we're the ones sending those trolls.
Dude, Jeff Burton is somewhere absolutely laughing at Steve coming up with new Twitter accounts to hassle me about Jordan Kyrou. God friggin' bless him. All right, for everybody, thank you very much for listening. As always, let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues Podcast. Hear more at 1057thepoint.com.